Okay, all right. So very good evening, guys. Can you all let me know if you all can hear me and see a screen? Yes. All good. Nice. Right. So today, guys, is our third past paper class, right? We started this past paper class 2 weeks ago. Now, the plan for today is to finish off unit number 1. So far, if you all remember, we did the MCQs of unit number 1. Essay questions, we started it off last class, but we just did the very first essay question. It took a bit of time because I was teaching you all a little bit about the answer formats, how much you all need to write, right? We were focusing a bit on that. So the target for today is to finish off all the unit 1 essay questions. So there is starting from the 2016 question number 2 all the way until the 2025 A-level paper. So we have around 10 questions there. Some of the questions I have filled it with the answers also, so I don't have to waste time writing points. We can then go faster. So we'll see. So today's class will go until ideally around 10:30, right? That is our usual time, 7:30, 10:30. I am planning to finish off everything. Hopefully we will be able to. Right. So I'll share my screen. We'll get started. Okay, so as usual, before we get into the past papers itself, wanted to spend around 5-10 minutes about a bit of current context about what is actually happening in the economic world out there. So the topic that I've chosen for today is a topic that is highly trending right now. That is on the Iran and Israel war that is happening with US also involved. So just to give you a bit of a brief overview and mainly to speak about how can this actually impact Sri Lanka, right? Because I don't think in your paper, they're going to ask you about the world impacts and all of it. No. So if they are to put a current context related question, that question will ideally be, but how it can impact Sri Lanka and how does that work? So we'll talk a little bit about the war itself and focus a little bit more on what happens to Sri Lanka because of this. So if you remember, Lamai, this Middle Eastern conflict is not something that is new. This is something that has been happening for decades and decades. There has always been times where certain countries end up fighting with one another, with the Western countries like US also getting involved. So this has happened so many times in the past and very recent, exactly around 1 week ago, we did see US and Israel both together launching attacks on Iran. Isn't the A-level paper already made? No, it's not. A-level paper Lama is usually made 2 or 3 months before your A-level exam. It's not made already, right? So the thing there, right? So 1 week ago, you had the US and Israel both getting together and attacking Iran. Then the question is, why are they doing that? Why are they attacking Iran? What's the problem that they have? And why is US getting involved in this whole thing? So the two arguments that the US has is one, that they want to see a regime change in Iran. So they don't like the current Iranian, the ruler, right? So they don't like this guy. They're saying that this guy is violating Iranian people's rights. They're doing this and that. So US is now getting involved, being the saint kind of a person. You know, I'm going to help all of these people, Kila. So they've got together with Israel and they're attacking Iran. And then you did see the Iranian leader, right? Him also passing away because of the first attack that happened. That was one reason. Another reason that they're also claiming is that Iran has a lot of nuclear weapons with them, right? So we don't want Iran to, launch those weapons and, all of that. So what we want to do is we want to, let's say, destroy all that and make sure that Iran doesn't build their nuclear weapons and all of that story. So one is the nuclear weapon story. Another part is that having to change having changed the regime that is currently going. But ulterior motives lamai is again in terms of oil. So if you look at Iran, Iran is one of the biggest oil producers in the world. So US and all has put sanctions on Iranian oil for a long period of time, but Iranian oil was always purchased by China. So even though everyone else had sanctions and they were not purchasing oil from Iran, you had China still continuing to purchase Iranian oil. So it did not really affect Iran, right? So Iran doesn't have to send oil to other countries as long as China is buying from them. So with all of that happening, US is also a bit mad at this. They also want to get control in terms of oil, in terms of all of that. And that is also a hidden motive behind this. So as a result of these attacks coming in, right, for various reasons, they are saying this and that. Iran is also attacking back. And one thing that Iran has done is they've mainly attacked the military bases, the US military bases that are there in the Middle Eastern countries. So you might wonder, sir, why is Iran attacking, let's say, UAE and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and why are they attacking that? So what they are doing is, Lamai, there are US military bases in all of those countries. Right? In Saudi, there is a military base. In UAE, there is a military base, right? So in all of that, there are military bases. So what Iran is doing is, yes, they are attacking Israel, plus they're also attacking the military bases in all those countries around. That is what has been happening. So these people are attacking, these people are attacking. So the war is going on. Today is the 7th day of this war that is happening. So far, you have not seen Iran directly attacked any US missiles going towards US. It's always been the military bases in these countries. So maybe if the war progresses, that is also a possibility. Is this World War III? Personally, I don't think this is World War III yet. I don't think, for now, I still feel it's a small regional conflict between the countries. Yes, the NATO is getting involved, different parties are getting involved. So all of that is happening. So then I'll not go too much towards that level because that is not what you will get questioned in your paper if they question, right? So if they question in your paper, it's more likely connecting that with something with Sri Lanka. So how does this whole US, Israel getting together and attacking Iran and Iran attacking back, this whole conflict that is happening, how does this impact Lamai Sri Lanka? What do you think? What's the impact to Sri Lanka? So the most direct impact to Sri Lanka is what, Lamai, coming from oil prices that are happening. That's the biggest impact, right? So the first main thing is that it can change oil prices. So if I'm to give you a bit of context over here, Lamai, now Sri Lanka's, you all remember, our total imports are roughly around, Lamai, now 2025 official full numbers are not out yet. It's roughly around, Lamai, let's say, what? 21 billion, right? Somewhere around that 21, 22 billion, right? So total Sri Lanka's total imports, right? We learned this in unit number 9, is roughly around, let's say, I'll say 22 billion US dollars, right? This is 2025. So out of this 22 billion, 4 billion is oil related imports. I'm just giving rough numbers. 4 billion US dollars are oil related numbers. So then out of this 4 billion that is oil related, now if you looked at last year, last year the average price of oil and oil was actually coming down after Trump had imposed tariffs. Production has slowed down. The demand for oil has reduced a bit, along with the supply of oil increasing. Prices of oil had come down. So up until last week, if you remember, the oil prices in the world market, there's a barrel of crude oil, was being sold at, Lamai, roughly around a 60 to 65 US dollars. That is where the price of oil was being sold at. But now, with this attack on Iran and the conflict happening, this oil prices, Lamai, has increased to roughly around the range of 75 to $80 a barrel. So if world market oil prices increase, That means Lamai, Sri Lanka's oil import bill will also increase. We'll have to spend more and more for oil imports. Not that we are going to just cause the price of oil increase, not that we are going to reduce buying oil. We need the oil for our vehicles, we need it for electricity generation. All of that is also there. So that as a result, Lamai, let's say if oil prices, right, increase by, let's say 10-15%, we'll say 10%. If oil prices increase by 10% because of this, that could mean our oil, roughly we import around 4 billion worth of oil. That means another 400 million worth of oil spending will happen in Sri Lanka. That means there is more imports than before. Earlier, if you would have spent 4 billion, now we might have to spend, let's say around 4.4, 4.5 billion, because not because the quantity of oil we import has increased, but the price of oil in the world market has gone up. So on one side, yes, that can cause Lamai increase in oil related imports, outflow from your balance of payment unit number 10. Then apart from that, Lamai, if oil prices increase in the world, you'll also know in Sri Lanka now we have Lamai cost reflective pricing. Remember, we learned that in unit number 7 and 8. So if you look at our petrol prices and all of it, now you don't have administered prices, you have cost reflective pricing, where you have to, the petrol and all of that, you need to sell it to reflect the actual cost of that petrol. So what can happen is if world market oil prices increase, then in Sri Lanka also, my petrol prices and all can start going up. But when it starts going up, I'm not saying it's going to double, Lamai. So let's say if world market oil prices increase by 10%, maybe our petrol prices could also increase by a 10%. Let's say if a liter of petrol is 300 now, maybe it can go to around 330, 320, 330. That could be a possibility. So far, it has not happened yet, but maybe in the coming months, if oil prices stay at high levels, that could be a possibility. So then, Lamai, you also need to know if oil prices, if petrol prices and all increase, every other price starts going up, Lamai. Because if petrol prices increase, Lamai, then transport, right? Bus fares, gas, then transport increasing, and agricultural, this thing. So agricultural goods getting transported, the vegetables all will start increasing. Then little by little, electricity prices can increase. So if that happens, Lamai, everything little by little can start increasing. So there can be one on the import side of it. And if petrol prices and all start to go up, what can happen is, Lamai, you can see inflation starting to increase. But I don't think it will increase very rapidly. Right now, Lamai, if you look at last month, our inflation rate was 1.6%. That is the one that was out 6 days ago. CCPI inflation for February was 1.6%. So it's still below the central bank's target of 5%. So 1.6% going to around 3%, 4%, I think is a possibility. In addition to this, there can also be pressure for the exchange rate to depreciate a bit. I don't think there will be big depreciation because we still have a lot of strong inflows, but small amounts of depreciation of the exchange rate can also happen. That's one side of it, right? Then along with that, Lamai, oil and all, apart from that, another side that I feel can get impacted is the story of, Lamai, worker remittances. Now, if you remember, worker remittances, all of it we learn in unit number 10. So Sri Lanka receives, Lamai, last year. Last year, we received close to around 8 billion of worker remittances, foreign workers working abroad and sending money. So it was around 8.2 billion US dollars in 2025. So out of this money coming in as worker remittances, Lamai, most of it comes from the Middle Eastern region. So Dubai, Saudi, right? It comes from those countries because we have a lot of people working there. So if this war, right now, I don't think it will have a big impact. But if this war, Lamai, continues for a long time, let's say if it goes for a year or two, that could mean, Lamai, people might start losing jobs. Firms might start cutting down. Then new people might not migrate to those countries anymore. So as a result, Lamai, maybe what can happen is your worker remittances, I don't think it will drastically fall, but it will not increase. Now, so far we have seen an increasing trend. Maybe what might happen is with all of these conflicts, it might stay flat. maybe a small fall can happen. I'm not saying that worker remittances will go from 8 billion to, let's say, 5 billion. I don't think. I think the numbers might stay closer to that 8 billion, or maybe come down to, let's say, around 7 billion levels. That can happen if the conflict continues. Now, if the conflict, Lama, in, let's say, in a month or two, if it gets sorted and they come into, let's say, a peace agreement, then I don't think there will be an impact. But if it continues for, let's say, at least a year, then I think a small fall in worker remittances can actually happen. That's another side. Then apart from that, Lamai, you also have some other small side of things that can happen. Another part is impact on Sri Lanka is on Sri Lankan exports, Lamai, but still not a big issue. Right? So Sri Lanka does export certain goods. You all know Sri Lanka's biggest export markets is US and the European countries, but there are also Middle Eastern countries, Lamai, that buy some of our tea, right? Not really garments, but tea and stuff. There are Middle Eastern countries that actually buy those. So as a result of that, what can happen? Maybe a small fall in our exports can also happen. Again, not a big impact, because Middle East is not really our big export market. Our biggest exports markets are US and UK, the European countries there. So a small fall in exports can actually happen. But then also another positive impact I see here is on our ports, right? Our port services. So when you have the now, because of the Iranian, this thing, they are blocking the Strait of Hormuz. I'm not going into too much of detail there. But because of things happening there, Lamai, the ships might have to reroute, take different routes and all. And as a result, one thing that can benefit is a lot of ships can actually start coming into the Sri Lankan Colombo port. Now, this happened around 2 years ago also, when you had a crisis in the Red Sea. Right? So 2 years ago, there was this group called the Houthis, right? They were attacking ships in the Red Sea, and all of that has happened. So as a result, what happened, Lama, when there were issues there in those Middle Eastern seas and all of that, there was a lot of ships actually coming into Colombo port. So if ships are coming into Colombo port, Lama, that means, yes, there were some pirates and all of that time. And now what happens is that can actually, Lama, help your Colombo port related revenue. So when ships come to the port, Lama, they have to pay. Right? So your port service related revenue can actually go up. Now, that's a good side of it. Yes, you have the bad side, oil prices going, tourism can fall a bit, exports can be a little laggy, right? Remittances, all of that can be a little bad, but tourism, port services actually can be a big impact. So overall, I feel, Lamai, right now with Sri Lanka running consistent balance of payment, current account surpluses, remember we talk about this in unit number 10, right? So in unit 10, we talk about all of this, remittances, imports, exports, port services, all of it. So overall, Lamai, I feel the impact on our balance of payment current account won't be that big. Right? I feel Sri Lanka right now is out of the radar. It's not a big issue. Yes, there was a Iranian ship that was in the Indian Ocean, and the US has what? There was a US submarine that went and bombed that. But overall, I don't think Sri Lanka is in very much of a negative situation. Yes, it can slow down things a little, but it's not something that will cause, let's say, another economic crisis, or not something that will become a big problem. Not real. So that's the overall side in terms of how it happens with Sri Lanka. I did get a lot of questions, Lamai, on the chat box. I ignored most of it because if I start explaining all of those questions, Lamai, I can't finish. Right? So I will leave it at that level. Something for y'all. You can read, you can find out more information. And so we'll see next week. We'll pick up a new interesting topic, maybe expansion of this, or maybe a new topic if there is. Right? Okay. So good job for today. Hope that was interesting and fine. We'll move into Lamai. Will your exam get postponed? No. Because of this war, there is no reason for your exam to get postponed. War is happening in the Middle East. So your exam will happen exactly the way it is supposed to happen. Right. So we'll come into Lamai. This will exam marking get postponed? Why should it get postponed? Exam marking is not happening in Iran. Exam marking is happening in Sri Lanka. So your exam will happen, lamai. Don't come up with random things to postpone your exam. Just because Iran is fighting with US and Israel, your exam won't get postponed. Your exam will happen in August. One more thing, lamai, I opened registrations for the fast track program. I think you all would have seen the flyers and all of it. Just to let you know, the registrations are limited. Right now, as of now, there is around 250 registrations already in 2 days. Registrations will most likely be limited to around 400, 450. I won't take everyone. So for those who are planning on registering, try to do it as early as possible. The first set of tutes will be couriered next week. So next week means most likely by around Monday or Tuesday, I will be couriering the first set of tutes. Can you join for revision? There is no revision class anymore. So I have finished the theory and the revision class syllabus. By Sunday, I will be finishing. So both of that will be done. So once theory and revision is done, that is where I'm starting this fast track program. It starts on the 16th. There is a daily study plan. There is a lot of work. Like I would have told you all before, if you're not willing to put the hard work, please don't join. You're taking up a spot of someone who is willing to put that effort. The fee is lamai, so it's 12 classes a month with the book and all of it. It's the normal regular theory and revision class fee, which is 5,500. Right? So I shared a flyer. I shared a PDF with all the details also. Please go through so that uh, all of it is cleared, right? So that there is no questions that I get there, right? So no, you don't get all the tutes together. Tutes will come monthly, even if you pay the full time, because I need to update the tutes regularly based on this, right? Right. So with that, I will keep it there. And most likely next Thursday, I will have Lamai a small 1.5 hour session with a plan for the next 5 months, uh, revealing the fast track study plan, plus what happens in the fast track, plus whoever who is not even in the fast track, you can still follow that plan. So next Thursday, I will have a session like that. I will let you know the date and the time and all. Okay, right. We'll get started. 2016, question 2, part 1. Okay, so 2016, question 2, part 1. What is the production possibility frontier? List the assumptions you make when you draw a PPC. So what is a production possibility frontier element? You can start off with saying a PPC is the line drawn, right? It's a line drawn showing what? It's a line drawn. So you can define it, Lama, in your words. It's a line drawn to show the what? Line drawn to show the possible combinations of two goods. Right? Line drawn to show the possible combinations of two goods that can be produced, if an economy uses all of its resources in its maximum sustainable way. So if you use all your resources in a maximum sustainable way, what are the different combinations of two goods that you can produce? So that is what the PPC shows. So I'm leaving the other part blank. You figure out the definition on your end. So you can write it different ways, no problem. Okay. And then what are the assumptions that you have when drawing a PPC? They're asking for Lamai. They're asking you list the assumptions. So what are the assumptions that we can put in? So one, you can say the production of only two goods, right? Production of only two goods. You can say, Lamai, resources, right? Your resources are constant, your stock of resources. Stock of resources are constant, right? Both in terms of quantity and quality. Your technology is constant, right? What else? What else can we? Technology is constant, stock of resources. You assume that there will be full utilization of your resources, right? Your resources are used efficiently, in other words, right? You make those assumptions. So all of that, Lamai, you can give in around 4 assumptions. These are directly there in your tubes, Lamai. Based on that, you can write your answer. Yes, that's an easy one to start off with. Then we go to the next question. What causes a production possibility frontier to shift outward? It's a 2-mark question. Now, here, Lamai, what causes a production possibility frontier to shift outward? There are 2 broad reasons. One is if your resource endowment means how much of resources you have. So if your resource endowment increases, that can cause shift in your PPC outward. In other words, if your land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, if any of this increases, PPC will shift. That is one main reason. Another reason why your, yes, factor endowment is fine. Another reason why your PPC can shift outward is, Lamai, if your factor or resource productivity, increases. So how can your factor productivity increase, Lamai? No, I will not put economic growth there. So things like, Lamai, if your technology improves, your human capital, your management methods, division of labor and specialization, if those kind of things improve, your factor productivity can improve. As a result, your PPC can shift up. Now, since this answer is, Lamai, asking a 2-mark question, what I would do is I would give the broad 2 reasons and maybe product touch a little bit about the sub reasons. So I will say one main reason why the PPC can shift outward is the increase in the resource endowment. In other words, that is where if your land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship increases. Point number 2, if factor productivity increases. For example, where your technology improves, your human capital improves, your management methods improve, right? So things like that. So increase in capital stock number is inside this. So it's inside your resource endowment. So I would say write the 2 main reasons, then touch a little bit upon the sub reasons. That's how I will answer. Show the examiner, look here, that I know what I am talking about. Yes, you can write points now. So points doesn't mean like a small 1-line point. You can talk about that. Last one is number division of labor. Increasing opportunity cost is not a reason. That's not a reason for PPC to shift out, but they're asking you why will the PPC shift outward. What about specialization? So division of labor and specialization comes as 1 point. Okay. Right. Then the next one, MM is management methods. Product listen, when you all do the questions, technology, human capital, management methods, division of labor and specialization. Which year it is on the screen, on the top, the year and the question is there. Please don't be lost. Question number 3, right? So what does increasing opportunity cost mean? What are the implications of this concept for the shape of the PPC? So how you all will write this question is, you will start off with talking about what is increasing opportunity cost. So what is increasing opportunity cost? Increasing opportunity cost is where, when you increase the production of one good by an equal amount, the amount of the other good you sacrifice keeps on increasing. If you want to increase, let's say, the production of one good by equal amount, you have to sacrifice more and more of another good. So define that concept properly. Then also you have to go into talking about the reasons behind this. Why do you have increasing opportunity cost? There are 3 reasons. One reason is non-homogeneous resources efficient in one industry, not efficient for the other. You can talk about that. And then technological differences. Right? Then that first part of the question is answered now. Then you go to the next side of the question. The next part of the question talks about what are the implications of this for the shape of the PPC. What can you then say? You can say when you have increasing opportunity cost, the PPC will be concave to the origin. And maybe if you want, just draw a small PPC like this also and show. Not needed, but just to make your answer look a little nice, you can touch about that. These are easy questions, Lamai. You have to be scoring the full marks for stuff like this. Okay. Done. Then, yes, I'm hoping you all wrote answers and came. You don't have time to write answers with me. I am just discussing. I told you all this on the very first class also. Okay. How many sessions have we done so far? I've done 2, lama, the third one. Right. Then 2016, question 2, part 4. This question says, draw a production possibility curve facing increasing opportunity cost for paddy and textile. Now, when they give you the two goods, lama, you can't take good X and Y. You can't take any other thing. Reasons for increasing opportunity cost? Yes, write those, lama, the ones that I told. If you don't know the reasons, then there is a problem. Huh? Show the PPC, show the following reasons in a PPC. Then you have reason A, B, C, D. One more thing, lama, just to make it very clear. Fast track program, lama, is an advanced revision program. It is not a theory class. If you now fast track in the first month, I will be doing lama unit 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 weeks, 1 unit a week. It's when I say advanced revision program, lama, I will only be focusing on the toughest areas of each unit and the most probable areas of that unit that can show up in your paper. I'm not going into go to very basics. That will not happen. So if anyone is planning to, learn theory through the fast track, learn the unit for the very first time through the fast track, you can't do that. That is not the program for you. Please don't join. Right. So if you want to learn theory, then yes, you can get my theory classes, recordings, and tunes. You can cover that up that way. If you have the basic idea of a unit, then the fast track is ideal. Now, for example, when I say increasing opportunity cost, you should know roughly what that is. When I say PPC, you should know this is what a PPC is. When I say market economy, this is what market economy is. So you need to know the basics. Only then, Lamai, the fast track program will actually make sense. Otherwise, it is just going to be too fast. It's going to be too hard for you. It will be hard. The papers will be hard. The whatever we do is the toughest areas there. It's not the basic theory program anyway, because my theory class is done, my revision class is done. I am doing the fast track program for a student who has already learned the complete syllabus twice with me. I'm teaching with that impression. I'm teaching the fast track program with the impression that you have learned theory, you have done the basic revision, all of it is done. Now for the third time you are learning. So the third time when I'm teaching, I'm not going to go into basics. So I'm making that very clear, Lama, because sometimes you all come to learn the theory. You come to learn theory, it's going to be too fast. Lama. I just don't want to cheat you all and just tell everyone to come. No, I don't want everyone to come. If you are willing to work on it, yes. Can you purchase the fast track recordings? That depends if I have any extra books left. Most likely all the slots will be over and I won't have extra books left. If I have extra books left, later you can purchase the recording, if not. Right, so back into this question, Lamai. Yeah, so I Lamai, you'd at least be 50% okay with a unit. At least, let's say at least 40% okay with a unit, then the fast track makes sense. If you have no idea about the unit, then no. Right, so two goods, paddy and textiles, and they're asking you, Lama, show how the PPF changes for the following events. Now, when they have given you the two goods, Lama, you can't take random goods. You can't take good X, good Y, consumer goods, capital goods. You can't do it that way. So if the two goods are given, you have to use that. So the two goods are, Lama, paddy and textiles. So we'll go one by one. So I will keep the vertical axis as paddy, horizontal as textiles. You can switch it around, no problem. So the first one is, Lamai, new and better fertilizer is invented. So if new and better fertilizer is invented, Lamai, what happens? Reasons for increasing option, I'll come, Lamai. There's other questions that are there. I'll come to it. One more thing, Lamai, those are not questions you have to be asking me right now. Those should be there in your tute and you should be knowing those. So what happens, Lamai, if you have better fertilizer invented? The productivity in paddy can improve, right? You won't see just because fertilizer comes, Lama, you won't see textiles going better. But because of fertilizer, now your paddy industry will do much better. So how you will show this is, Lama, you will show this by a shift of your PPC only by the paddy industry. Paddy will shift outward. Now remember, you also have to give, Lama, a small 1 to 2 line explanation here. I'm not going to write the explanation word by word. So what you should be saying is, Lama, you need to say, look here, the introduction of paddy, what does it do? Because, sorry, the introduction of fertilizer. As a result of the introduction of fertilizer, what will happen is the productivity of the paddy industry will increase. As a result, the PPC will shift outward only for the paddy industry. Right. On the recording, Lama, I get so many questions on the recording for the 100th time. I always say this on the group. I've said this in the previous 2 classes. Recordings of the past paper classes, I will upload on YouTube when I find some free time. There is no guarantee as to when I will upload. Today's recording might be uploaded tomorrow, might be uploaded in a week, might be uploaded 3 months from today. When I find free time, I will upload. So far, I have uploaded it within a week since I had some free time. If I get busy, it will get uploaded even 2 months later from this. So to make that very, very clear, right? So mark the PPC, give a small explanation and get that done. So ideally, you will get around 1 mark for the PPC, half a mark for a small explanation, 1.5 marks per question. Then going into part B of this, there is a surge in the quantity of labor which can be employed in both sectors. What happens now? If the amount of labor that can be employed in both sectors increase, paddy, so maybe why there is a surge, maybe there is so much of graduates who have now entered the labor force, maybe so many people who have migrated the country now because of, let's say, the war, they have come back to Sri Lanka. So now you have so much of labor. So much of labor means not that the productivity increases, Lamai, your factor endowment increase. Now you have a lot of labor. So when you have a lot of labor, your labor increases, your PPC will shift outward. So you can give that. Can I give a small explanation? You can write the explanation. I'm telling you the explanation, you write it in your own words. You can't be that bad, right? So 1 mark for this. So the explanation for something like part B can be, because of the increase in labor, the factor endowment or the resource endowment in the country increases. As a result, the country will now be able to produce more paddy and textile. This can be shown by a outward movement of the PPC or a rightward shift of the PPC. In your words, you write. Then part C, a severe drought results in a 10% decrease in the usable farmland. How do you show this? There's been a drought, right? Again, paddy and textile. So a drought has caused a decline in the amount of farmland. So if there is a decrease in the amount of farmland, will that affect the textile industry? That can't affect the textile industry. If there is a fall in the farmland, that should only affect your paddy industry. So then what will you do, You will only cause a shift in the paddy curve. So the available resources, the land available for paddy is coming down. Your factor endowment is coming down, but it's only coming down for paddy. So how you will show that is, you will show a movement in this one only for paddy. Right. Yes, you have to draw a PPC for each sub question. You can't show all of it in one PPC. And given that it's a 10%, if you want, now it doesn't say that the paddy has fallen by 10%, it's the land has fallen by 10%. But if you really want, you can even put some numbers here. You can, for example, say 190. And a 10% fall in the paddy land can cause a 10% fall in the paddy production here. And give a small 1-line explanation. And then the last one, D, new technologies invented in the textile industry to reduce the cost of production. So if you have new technology in the textile industry, how can you show that? Will that affect the paddy industry? That can't affect the paddy industry. So new technology means the productivity in the textile industry will improve. How do we show that? By a rightward shift of the PP. Right? Your PPC will shift. Right. So you properly label them, then you can write. So these questions, I think a question like this is like 3 marks in your A-level paper. No, they're saying that focus is not on drought, and the focus is on a decrease in the usable farmland. So land is decreasing here. That means your resources are going down. That's why you're shifting the PPC. If they just say drought, then you can maybe show it by a point inside. But they're saying no decrease in farmland. It has to be there. Can you purchase the fast track tubes only? No. Just asking if there was a question. No instruction tools. If there was no question, then you can put whatever two goods that you want, right? So, but depends on the question also. Now, for example, the main question doesn't say the two goods, but the sub question says, for example, something with agriculture. So then you have to connect it with agriculture. You have to have it there. A point movement will happen when the determinants of a PPC doesn't change. If your resources are not changing, if your productivity is not changing, then it's a point movement. Increasing labor means, yes, increasing your resource endowment. Amount of your resources that you have are increased. Right, so that's the 2016 A-level part 4. Then we have the last one, Lamai. 2016 A-level question 2, part 5. State the difference between productive and allocative efficiency. Right, so quickly, what is productive efficiency, Lamai? Productive efficiency is where when you do what? What do you do, Lamai? How do you define productive efficiency? You produce the maximum sustainable output, producing the maximum sustainable output by utilizing all your resources, right? And not by utilizing least resource, by utilizing all your resources. Utilizing all resources in a economy. And if you do that, what does that also mean, Lamai? You will be producing at the lowest average cost. So if you use all your resources efficiently and produce the maximum sustainable output, that is what you call the productive efficiency. And if you are doing that, you're also producing at the least cost or least average cost. What are the conditions for productive efficiency? The conditions for productive efficiency, Lama, you need to talk about having full employment and full production. And if you have achieved productive efficiency, where will you be on the PPC, Lamai? You will be operating at any point on the PPC. Any point on the PPC will represent productive efficiency. And for 2 marks, Lamai, Poddak explain that story. Then what you will do is, then you will move into Lamai talking about allocative efficiency. What is allocative efficiency? Allocative efficiency is where, Lamai, you allocate the resources in an economy to produce the most desired goods and services. You producing the most desired goods and services of the society. So you allocate your resources to produce what the society wants. You distribute your resources based on society's preference. Now, if the society wants bread and buns, you have to make bread and bun. You can't make clothes and, let's say, guns. So you have to allocate your resources, produce what the society wants, and produce that ideal amount. The condition for that is, you all remember, marginal cost has to be equal to marginal benefit, or in other words, that is a price. And where does that, economic efficiency is the combination of both of this now, right? So if you have allocative efficiency is not any point on the PPC, it's one specific point on the PPC. Right? So, and if you want, you can say the combination of productive and allocative efficiency both together is economic efficiency. Here, Lama, you don't have to draw a diagram, I don't think. For 2 marks, explain the two concepts. That is what I will do for a question like this. All right. Okay. Maybe if it was a 6-mark question, I will go into a bit of a diagram, talk a little bit about economic efficiency. I'll do all of that. Since a 4-mark, 2, I will split it at that point. Done. Then we move into Lamai, the 2017 A-level paper. The combination is Lamai economic efficiency. So economic efficiency is the productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. So if you have achieved productive and allocative efficiency both, that is what you call economic efficiency, right? It can't be very short points, Lamai, even though they have said state. 2 small short paragraphs is what I will recommend. Maximum resources with least resources. Don't say least resources, least cost. Fine. Okay. Right. 2017 question number 1. Okay. Depends on how you're written, Lama. I'm not very sure when you say on the chat box, I have written this, I've written that, how much of marks I will get here, because I don't know how you have written. Okay. Allocative efficiency, yes. Distributing resources based on society's preference. In other words, you produce what the society wants. That is what that is. Okay. Allocative efficient point also undergoes productive efficiency. You don't have to talk too much about that. Okay. Right. So then 2017 A levels question number 1. So this was the A level paper that I did. The following diagram shows the PPC for economy, which produces only civilian and military goods. Assume that the economy is producing at point K, right? So right now they are producing at point K. Does the economy exhibit increasing opportunity cost? Explain. So you can say yes, right? So yes, it exhibits increasing opportunity cost. And why? Why does it exhibit increasing opportunity cost? Yes, similar to your term exam, because the PPC is concave to the origin. And if you want to explain this a little bit more in detail, you can say, Lamai, military goods and civilian goods, why will it have increasing opportunity cost? Because the resources used to produce it will be different, technology will be different. So therefore, it will have increasing opportunity cost. And that is why by the concave PPC, it is proving that. So in your words, Lamai, you write that nicely. Then if this economy were to go for war, the most likely point, where would it move? From K to where, Lamai? K to E, U, T, M. So if you're going to war, Lamai, you need more military goods. But that doesn't mean you only produce military goods, Lamai. M is wrong, because M is producing only military goods. You can't have economy, Lamai, that is only producing guns and bombs. You need to have some civilian goods also, some amount of food, some amount of clothes also has to be produced. So therefore, you have to go to K to T, right? So you need to say this, so then explain. So you need to say, if the economy is going for war, the economy would then require more military goods. However, it still has to produce some amount of civilian goods like food. Therefore, it would move from K to T. Then part C, if the economy entered a recession, the economy would move from point K to which point? Can you get a question like this? I don't know. So I'm not the one who's setting the paper, but they can be created. From K to Lama, you will move to U, right? If you have a recession, you will move towards a point inside. So explain, what is your explanation, Lama? Your explanation is, when there is a recession, what happens? Aggregate demand comes down. So firms will then cut down production. When firms cut down production, there will be unemployment. That is why you're showing it by a point inside. I wrote both M and T. Wrong, Lamai. If you wrote both M and T, that means you have not been able to understand the question properly. Because you can't go at M, Lamai. M is only producing military goods. A country can't survive like that. No, you can't say not sustainable. You can sustain, but just because you go for war, Lamai, you have to practically understand you can't only produce guns and bombs. You still have to make some amount of food. So civilian goods have to be there, Lamai. So that's what the examiner is testing. Right. You don't have to go to aggregate supply here. Recession is just aggregate demand coming down. Okay. Right. So that's A, B, and C. 6 marks. I feel that's a very easy question. Part B again, Lama. So if you're going for walkie and Lama, you need more military goods, right? So you will go from point K to point T. Point T is producing a lot of military goods, a little civilian goods. Okay. Yes, E is scarcity. See again, if you are to move to a recession, what is a recession? A recession is where the aggregate demand in the economy is coming down. People are not spending. So when people are not spending, the firms will cut down production. When firms cut down production, that means there will be unemployment, right? They will fire people. Machines will be just left idle. So how do you show unemployment? By point moving inside the PPs. Okay. Yes, producing beyond the capacity could mean point. Okay. Then we go to Lamai, the second one. So some of these questions, Lama, I have copied the answer from the marking scheme and put it so that we can go faster, because otherwise if I start writing one by one, it will take time. Right? So I have put in some answers. All the answers I have put in, Lama, is from the original marking scheme. Okay. So state 3 reasons that explain why division of labor increases the economy's level of production. So why does division of labor increase the economy's production? What and what can you write? So you can talk about, my first thing is, because of division of labor, there can be what? There can be specialization. So as a result of this, people will specialize and do something that they are good at. So you can talk a little bit about that. You see, so people have different skills, talents, interests, right? So rather than one person trying to do everything, because of division of labor, you can focus on one thing and get that done. So then they become more productive. You can talk about that. Then you can talk about workers who specialize. They will be much more quicker in what they do. Right? You can mention those. Then you can also talk about specialization can lead to economies of scale. It can lead to large scale production. As a result, average cost can come down. You can talk about because of division of labor, the use of machinery will be encouraged. You can talk about productivity improving. So any 3 reasons, right? You can give. Now, this is a very common question, Lama, that the examiner has kept on asking year after year in the recent times. Yes, you can talk about reduction in wastage. You can talk about reducing time. All of that is there. So if you would have done the past papers, you have seen at least 3 times. This was tested year and year and year and year again. Cost of production decrease, that is the third point, right? Economies of scale is where average cost comes down. Okay. So connect this with Lamai. How does it increase the level of production directly? Rather than, for example, saying management gets easier, connect it with production. How does this help with better production? Productivity improving, helps you use better machines, wastages reduce, right? All of that you can highlight. Okay. Then the next question, 2017, question 1, part 3. This one is saying, with the help of saving time, you can talk about, but you talk about how, like improving productivity and less mistakes. That is why you end up saving time. So with the help of a PPC, explain the concept of a scarcity. So what is scarcity, Lama? You all know what scarcity is, right? The limitedness of resources compared to your unlimited ones. Then what you should do is, Lama, now you have to draw the PPC and show. So here, I'm giving the same answer as the marking scheme. So in the marking scheme, what they have done is, Lama, they have marked point A outside. They have marked a few points inside than on the PPC, and they have showed, look here, point B, C, D, they are attainable combinations, but scarcity is where you don't have resources to produce it. So scarcity will be shown by a point outside your PPC, and they have then given that explanation. Very easy question, Lama. This has to be 3 marks in your paper if you get a question like this. Are calculators allowed for econ? No. Then 2017, the next one. What functions do price serve in a market economy? What are the functions now? There are 3 functions that price serves. What are the functions? The first one is the signaling, or in other words, we call this the informative function. So price provides signals or information. Second one is the incentive function. Price motivates you to do things. And the third thing is, Lamai, the rationing or the allocative function. So here, Lamai, just mentioning these 3 should give you the 3 marks. But if you really want, maybe give a small 1-line explanation if you want. If you want, but don't waste time explaining in detail, because they're simply asking what are the functions. So mentioning also should be enough. But if you think you're not sure, will they give all the marks? Write a small 1 line about that. Okay. Right. That is part 4. Then the next one. State the disadvantages of a command economy. What are the disadvantages of a command economy now? Can you all tell me? Problems of coordination, right? When the government has to run everything, that can be a problem, right? So problems of coordination. And that can be an issue. Then what? Lack of technology. So lack of competition. You can connect some points now. You can say lack of competition leading to lower consumer choice because there is no competition, because there is nothing much. So you can say lack of competition leading to lower consumer choice. You can talk about that. Then you can talk about what line? You can talk about budget deficit. I won't say it's a big one. You can talk about bureaucratic delays. It takes time for decision making, right? So I'll just simplify it. You can say delays in decision making. Right? It takes time to make a decision. Then you can say lack of quality, right? So the quality of goods and all will be much lower, right? And you can connect that with the fact that there is not much of innovation in the market. You can say that resources can be wasted that could lead to some environmental degradation. Okay, so you can talk about those. Don't just say inefficiency now, it be specific here when you're writing this. Slow economic growth, I won't give it as a main point. You have enough and more market economies also that has yes, freedom of choices. Now I mentioned that in the second point. You can give those. Okay. Corruption, I won't always give now. It depends, right? It depends on the country also. Sri Lankan government is corrupt, but there can be governments that are not corrupt. So entrepreneurship discourage, yes, lack of consumer sovereignty and all will come under that second point. Okay. Bureaucracy means the processes that you have. So because of bureaucracy, it delays the process of making decisions. Do you have to explain the points? No need. You can just state the. Is China a command? No. North Korea is a command. Okay, that's the 2017 A-level paper. Question itself was easy, not that hard. Black market prices, no, those are not main stuff. No, give the main stuff now. Don't write all unwanted ones. Give the main points that are there. Okay. Then 2018, right? Resource exploitation, again, not a main point. I won't put it there. Okay. 2018, question number 1. Distinguish between entrepreneurship and labor as a factor of production. So you can start off with product by defining what it is. So entrepreneur is the person who combines all the factors of production. Labor is the physical and mental efforts of people. You can start off with that. And then you can talk about what are these things. So entrepreneur takes a risk, right? The entrepreneur can either get a profit or a loss. But someone like labor, they are guaranteed of getting a salary or wage. Entrepreneur is not guaranteed of return. Then you can talk about entrepreneur will try to come up with new innovations, come up with new things. Labor doesn't do that. Labor will just simply follow whatever instructions that he has given. He will just do that. Then you can talk about entrepreneur makes the policy decisions, right? He makes the main business decisions of the thing. And then labor are the ones who just carry out those decisions. So you can ideally highlight around 4 key reasons, right, in just a 4-mark question and give it like that. Don't draw a table like I would have told you. It has to be ideally in 4 points. And 4 points, the point can't be a small 1-line point. It has to be a bit of a detailed. Okay. Easy one. I hope you all can answer. Then 2018 question number 2. I know this question was there before also, but in a different way. Explain the increasing opportunity cost and what causes opportunity cost to increase. In other words, they're asking for the reasons behind increasing opportunity cost. So what is increasing opportunity cost? Increasing opportunity cost is where when you increase the production of one good by an equal amount, what happens? The amount of the other good that you sacrifice keeps on increasing. So for talking about that, they are giving you 2 marks. Then what are the reasons for increasing opportunity cost? Remember, there are 3 reasons. One reason is resources are not homogeneous or non-homogeneous resources, meaning the resources used for one industry are different from the resources used in the other industry. Reason number two, the technology or the techniques used to produce the good lamai, right? The technology or the techniques used to produce are different. And then another reason is lamai, resources are appropriate to produce only one good. That is the same point of resources efficient in one industry are not efficient in the other. A person who is very good at, let's say, baking buns, if you put him in the mobile phone industry, he doesn't know how to make a mobile phone. An engineer who is at the mobile phone industry, you put him in a bakery to bake buns, he doesn't know how to bake buns. So resources efficient in one industry are not efficient in the other. That's the third point that they're talking about. Yeah, no factor mobility. Don't give that as a perfect point, but break it and give. Here, a good cannot be produced without sacrificing another good. No, in constant opportunity cost also, you can't do that. In constant opportunity cost also, if you want to produce one good, you sacrifice another. But here the point is, when you increase the production of one good by an equal amount, you sacrifice more and more of another. The word equal amount is the element to show, because otherwise it becomes unfair. So for example, if you increase, let's say, I don't know, let's say this is capital goods. If you increase it by 10, 10, 10, 10, then you will sacrifice more and more and more and more of the other good. So the word equal is shown, because if you increase this by an unequal amount, then obviously the amount of other good you sacrifice can change. But when you're increasing the amount of this by an equal amount, the amount of other good you're sacrificing is increasing, means under there is increasing opportunity cost. To produce the same amount as before, now you have to sacrifice more and more of the other good. The difference between the first point and the third point is, one is that the resources are different, right? The third point is that resources efficient in one industry are not efficient in the other. Now, for example, let's say, now if I take the example of mobile phone production and bun production, resources are not homogeneous, means in the mobile phone industry, you have different machines. Here you have an oven, totally two different resources. There you have some machines and something, here it's oven. Resources are different. Three is, let's take, for example, labor. The labor who is good at making machines is not good at baking buns. So that's the third point. Okay. So ideally, giving a small, since the question says what causes opportunity cost to increase, giving a small one-line explanation is good level, rather than just giving it as a point. No, first and second is different level. First and second is that the technology is different. The techniques of how you produce that good. So there are small differences between the points, but those are three different. Okay, right. Moving to the next one. 2018 question 3. List the 3 fundamental questions any economic system must answer. That part is easy. The 3 fundamental questions: what to produce, how to produce, and whom to produce. Then outline the 3 basic economic systems that have evolved to answer these basic economic problems. So they are basically asking you, like, give a small outline about the 3 economic systems. So you can talk about a little bit about a market economy. So you can say a market economy is an economy that uses the price mechanism to answer the basic economic problems. And you can say in a market economy, usually resources are owned by the private sector. And then that's enough. Outline a small 2-3 line enough. Then command economy. So command economy or a planned economy, you can say a command economy is an economy that uses central planning, or in other words, they use planning mechanism in order to answer the 3 basic economic problems. And in a command economy, resources are usually owned by the government. And then mixed economy. So a mixed economy is an economy that uses both price and the planning mechanism to answer basic economic problems. Resources are owned by both the private and the public sector. So you don't have to talk about how they answer the economic questions. Like basically outline the 3 basic economic systems. Each question, how they answer, you don't have to show them. That is not needed. So first talk about the what, how, and whom. Then talk about these. These are actually very easy questions that you should be able to get full marks. Okay, right. Then that's question 3. Then question number 4. Question number 4 says, using production possibility curves, right? Explain separately the impact of the economy of a rise in unemployment and an increase in the working age population. So there are 2 points there, right? So rise in unemployment is one thing, increase in the working age population is another thing. So how do you show this? How do you show a rise in unemployment? So these are two situations you have to show. How do you show a rise in unemployment? You show a rise in unemployment by a point moving inside the PPC. So then you have to put the explain that. You can say, for example, what does that mean? An increase in unemployment means that the resources in the economy are not fully utilized. You're underutilizing your resources. So as a result of this, there would be a point movement inside the PPC. Why is it not a shift, Lamai? It's not a shift because rising unemployment doesn't mean, Lamai, that your labor is decreasing. You still have the same amount of labor. It's just that some of this labor don't have jobs now. So you can't shift the PPC. It will be a point moving in. Yes, here now the accesses can be anything, X and Y, capital, consume, anything is fine. Then how do you show an increase in the working age population? Your working age population increasing means, Lamai, your labor force can increase. So how does that impact then? That means, Lamai, your resource endowment is going up. Your working age population is increasing, means that more and more people will fall into the labor force. More and more people falling into the labor force means your PPC can shift outwards. Labor force, working age population, my theory and revision class students, we will learn it on this Sunday, unit number 11 and 12, our last class. Okay. So unemployment doesn't have to always be my only labor. It can even be, for example, if machines are there and machines are not utilized, that is also unemployed. What will happen in the unemployment increase for long term? Nothing like that. Unemployment is just a point moving in. If people aged but can't work. No, so working age population is not aging population. The working age population is the population between, let's say, 15 to 60. That's the working age. They're not the old people. Okay. So unemployment is a point moving in. Working age population increasing is a shift of the PPC outwards. List 3 fundamental questions. Yeah, the 3 basic economic problems. You write those 3, and then the next part of the question is asking, this one. I think you were not listening in that part. But the first part of this question is yes, list the 3 fundamental this ones. And then a question part, outline the basic economic systems that have evolved to answer this. So a part automatically. For this question, the allocation will be like 2 marks, 2 marks. So 1 mark, 1 mark for the PPC, 1 mark, 1 mark for a small explanation. Labor is a factor of production, so why is the point 2? So unemployment doesn't mean, Lamai, that your labor is coming down, right? That's what I just said. If Sri Lanka has 100 people as labor, unemployment doesn't mean that 100 people have died. You still have 100 people. Your factor endowment is not changing. That's why you don't shift the PPs. It's just that those 100 people, some of them don't have jobs. You're not utilizing your labor properly. That's why it's a point moving. If your labor itself has migrated and gone, then you will shift the PPC. Okay. So basic things that you have to have in. Right. If elderly population increase, that will not have a big impact on the PPs. There's nothing called prolonged unemployment. Usually that's maybe if you say like something like a depression, you can cause the PPC to come shift, but there's nothing called a prolonged unemployment. Is it like a recession? For that person who's asking me the question, recession is also unemployment. Recession is where demand has fallen, production falls. As a result, there is unemployment. Recession also causes unemployment. That's why we show it by a point moving in. Okay. Right. Then the next one is one thing. I'll just make it very clear so that we are here. I get a lot of questions on the chat box. I would have told you all this in the very first class also. This is not a theory class. I'm not here to teach you the theory. If I'm here to teach you theory one by one, then this past paper class will have to go over on 1.5 years. I'm here to help you finish the past papers, assuming You have learned the theory somewhere else. In another class, hurry, school, hurry. You have learned it somewhere else. You know the theory. I'm just helping you with answer writing and doing that part. So I'm not here to teach you what is unemployment, what is recession. I'm not here for that. Right. So that's why I might sometimes ignore your questions on the chat box, because if I start answering all of that, we can't finish. It's not because I'm trying to put you down. No, because if it goes on like that, I can go. Not that I can't explain. I can explain. We can do unit 1 for around 2 months. And then that's all that we will end up doing in this next 5 months. Okay. So I will maintain a certain speed because I have to finish. Okay. Right. So then the next one, 2018 question number 5. If you are not charged a price for a consumption of a good, that good must be a free good. Do you agree? Explain. Is that correct, Lamai? Just because you don't have a price for that good is a free good? No. What is a free good, Lamai? In economics, a free good is also known as a non-economic good. So what do you write over here, Lamai? You say free goods or non-economic goods are goods that are unlimited in supply. Right? They are unlimited in supply. There is no opportunity cost. And also, yes, there is no price involved. You can touch about that, Product explain. But then you can also say there are economic goods. So economic goods are the goods that are limited in supply. Limited in supply, there is opportunity cost. But there are also certain economic goods that are given free of charge to the consumer. Now, for example, this past paper class that we are doing, this is an economic good. Right? I am sacrificing my time, not that I have nothing to do on a Friday night. Right? So I am sacrificing everything. My even, yes, there is a production cost here, my Wi-Fi, my internet, everything is affected. But still I am here doing this class because I feel it's worth it. But it is an economic good. Even though it is an economic good, there is no cost for you. Right? I'm not charging a class fees. So you can say, so just because a good is given free, that doesn't make it economic. Yes, non-economic is there, but there are certain economic goods that are also given for free. Like, for example, the government school textbooks that you get, the free school uniforms that you get from the government. So you have to highlight those parts. Economic goods can turn in non-economic. No. Other way it can happen, that way no. Okay, so that is done then. That's 2018. Right? Then we move into 2019. Easy question. Touch about public goods or okay. I'll do 2019 and 2020 and give you all a small break. Okay, so moving into 2019, free goods can become economic goods if there is a production process and converting. For example, you convert sunlight into solar power, rainwater into bottled water. That can happen. Okay. No, in the previous question, you don't have to talk about the conversion, Lama. You just have to talk about the price aspect is what you're talking about. You don't have to talk about economic goods getting converted on economic. That is not needed. I just answered that because some people ask. Right. So we move into 2019. The first question says, Lamai, define and classify economic resources. So very easy, Lamai. You start off with what are economic resources? So economic resources are the resources that are limited in supply, right? They are limited in supply and they are what? And there is an opportunity cost in what? So you start with defining what is that, and then classifying economic resources means, Lamai, what's the classification there? That is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So for this wing, instead of just saying land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, give a small Lamai one-line explanation of what is land. So land is all the natural resources which are limited in nature that are used in the production process. Labor, physical, mental efforts of the people. Capital, all man-made aids that are used to produce goods and services. Entrepreneur, the individual who combines all these factors together. So give a small one-line definition. If you want, Lama, you can give a the human resources and property resources. You can give that classification and then further classify it into this. That is also fine. But the land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship classification has to definitely be there in this. Okay. So first define economic, then touch a little bit about this. Okay? Again, I feel a free mark in your A-level paper. These are the easiest of questions ever. Then the second one, explain why scarcity leads to trade-off. Now, what is a trade-off, Lama? A trade-off is something that you are sacrificing. What are primary and secondary resources? That is what you are learning in business. The primary resources are the ones extracted from earth. Secondaries like the machines and stuff like that. We don't go there. Okay. So why does scarcity lead to trade-off? Now, trade-off is not really opportunity cost. Trade-off is what you sacrifice. Opportunity cost is the benefit of the next best thing you sacrifice. Now, for example, if you ask me, Arshad sir, what is your trade-off of doing this class? There is a lot of things, right? One, I could have, maybe slept early. Maybe I could have gone out on a Friday night, right? Maybe I could have, done something else. So all of those are my trade-offs. My opportunity cost is not all of that. My opportunity cost is my next best thing. So when you make a choice, Lamai, you make a trade-off. So I made a choice saying that, look here, I'm going to do this class at this time. Now, that's the same thing you all did, right? Out of the 1,000 people in the fast track class, in the past paper class group, you all are the ones who made the choice that you're going to come to this class. So because you made the choice that you're going to come to this class, you traded off a lot of things. Maybe you could have had dinner with your family and had fun. Maybe you could have gone out. Maybe you could have studied something, right? All of those are your trade-offs. So you have to explain that story. So you start off with talking a little bit about scarcity. Say that there is unlimited wants, limited resources. As a result of this, you have scarcity. And then these scarce resources, they have what? These scarce resources, they have alternative uses. But you can't do all of that. So therefore, you have to make a choice. The moment you make a choice, what happens? That leads to a trade-off. That means you have to sacrifice something else. You don't have to go into detail into talking about opportunity cost here, just leave it at trade-off. The moment you make a choice, you're sacrificing something. What you sacrifice is what you call your trade. So explain that story. Again, not a very hard one, Lamai. Simple story, right? Just the normal story of how scarcity leads to opportunity cost. But instead of going to opportunity cost, you stop it at trade-off. You say when you make a choice, you have to sacrifice. Okay. Right. Then the next one. How does a PPC trade-off is all what we said. It's correct. How does a PPC illustrate the following concepts? Very easy in Lemon. The first one is scarcity. So how do you show scarcity? By a point outside your PPC. So you have to give a small one-line explanation with that. Once again, the before one is not hard. If you're struggling with the before one, then you have a big problem with the basics. So talk about the fact that you have unlimited wants, limited resources. That leads to scarcity. Scarce resources have alternative uses. So you can't do everything. Therefore, you have to make a choice. When you make a choice, then you have to sacrifice something. What you sacrifice is what you call your trade-off. Trade-off and opportunity cost is not the same thing. That's where I started this question. Please listen. Then, question number 3. How does the PPC explain the following concepts? The first one is my problem of scarcity. So how does the PPC explain scarcity? By a point outside the PPC. So product, you have to give a small one-line explanation also. Just drawing a PPC is not enough. Then how does a PPC represent opportunity cost? Here also, you can maybe ideally show 2 different points. Let's say, for example, point A, point B. So you can show, okay, look here. If you want to increase the production of this good, you have to sacrifice this. So this is your opportunity cost kind of a thing, right? You can show that, right? You can put some numbers and all, and you can show this is what it is. Then economic recession, we did a recession question before. Recession is a point moving inside. And then finally, economic growth. Economic growth is where you will shift the PPC out. So remember, Lamai, these are again a question that is free marks in your A-level paper. Don't lose marks. Ideally, they'll give you half a mark for drawing the PPC, a half a mark for a small 1 to 2 line explanation. Unemployment is a point inside the PPC, not on the PPC. Okay. Then 2019 question number 4. Okay. Now, one more thing that I also will recommend, Lamai, for the past paper class, for those, some of y'all, by looking at the questions that I am getting from y'all, y'all have forgotten your theory. So before you start actually writing for past papers, just skim through your theory tutor. You all have some note that you all are studying. You don't have to memorize that note. Maybe take one entire day and read your theory note. Right? Just put the concepts back into your head and refresh it. And then start to write the past papers. And the past papers also, if you can't write it alone, at least look at your tutor one and write Lamai. So don't like copy and paste word by word. Look at the past paper, then read your that area, close the tute, then write it from your words. Somehow write. That is what has to happen. Then the fourth one. There is another question before this. How does a PPC illustrate this one? Sorry, is the next one this command and market economy? Is that the question? No. There can't be more, right? This is the correct one, right? 2019. Sorry, in my queue, do I have another question? Okay, somehow if the two questions are this, we'll just this one, right? Okay, so if the question in the tute is wrong, that's fine. Okay. The fourth one, explain why all combinations on a PPC display productive efficiency, but only one combination displays allocative efficiency. So why are all combinations Lamai productively efficient? You are talk about what is productive efficiency. Productive efficiency is where you use all your resources fully, and what you do Lamai, you produce at the maximum sustainable level of output. So you have full employment, full production, you're producing at the least cost method. And as a result of this, what happens? You are producing at any point on the PPC. You have to show that. So why does productive efficiency, why is it displayed by any point? Now you can draw a diagram if you want, Lamai, that is okay. And then what is allocative efficiency? Allocative efficiency is where you allocate resources to produce the goods that are most desired by the society. You produce what the society actually wants. The condition for that is Lamai, marginal cost equals marginal benefit. Now, that can't be something that is all the points. The society wants one probable combination. So then that is why it's only one point, one specific point on the PPC. If you want, Lama, you can draw that marginal benefit, marginal cost, because remember in your unit 1 tute I have given you, and then draw the arrows and even show, look here, this is only one specific point, but production efficiency can be any particular point. Struggling to write answers, guys. If you're struggling to write answers, the only thing is, Lama, you write more and more. The more and more you write, the better you will get. That's the only way to improve your answer writing. The first few times when you write answers, you at least look at the tute and write. You write. Then you will get better where you can write without looking. Right. So that is this one. And then the next question, part 4 of it, maybe 4 or 5 of it, I'm not sure. How does a market economic system differ from a command economic system in solving the questions about resource allocation? Now here, Lamai, when you say Lamai, resource allocation, this is the what to produce question. Now, ideally, what you should be writing over here, Lamai, you have to show how market economy is different from a command economy in answering this what to produce question, is what to produce in what quantity. Now, I have simply copied and pasted the answer from the marking scheme, but I felt this answer can be sorted out a little bit better. Right? So you can first, Lamai, for 2 marks, explain how a market economy answers this resource allocation problem. So you can say, look here, in a market economy, resources are allocated based on price mechanism. Right? So You look at the price signals in the market, and then based on demand and supply, you produce the goods that are most profitable here. So here there is no government involvement, nothing. It's all decentralized decision making that will happen. Then after giving that paragraph, you then go to your next paragraph and talk about, okay, on the other hand, this is how a command economy answers. Command economy has something called centralized decision making. You have the central planning authority. They will do a full detailed input output analysis. They will see, okay, what are the resources we have? With those resources, what can we produce? And then they will decide on the goods that can produce the greatest social welfare. And then they will allocate their resources like that. So if you can properly give it like that, Lamai, that should be fine. Alternative answer is what I have given here on the screen, what is on the marking scheme. Okay. Then that's it with 2019. Can someone just check, Lamai, if I missed any question? How will marks be allocated? Around 2 marks for market, 2 marks for command. Those are all the questions. Maybe my question numbers would have been here and there, but we went through everything. How is goods determined on a command, prices determined? They also use a bit of price mechanism, but they have control prices, like maximum prices and stuff. They have stuff like that. Okay. So then we go into 2020. Let's all do 2020 quickly, and then I'll give you a small break. Right. So 2020 A levels, question number 1. Yes, Central Planning Authority, it's better to mention. What is meant by scarcity? Explain the problem of scarcity using a PPC. Now, this was a question that was repeated. So what is meant by scarcity? You can say scarcity is the limitedness of resources compared to your unlimited ones. And then how do you show scarcity on a PPC? Remember that same question where something like this here. So with the help of a PPC represent scarcity, this exact thing, if you copy and paste in that answer there, you will get the same. Talk about scarcity, talk about how scarcity is shown on a PPC. Since I explained that, I'm going to skip that. Right, that is 2020 question number 1. So then we go to 2020 question number 2. Now this was an interesting question. Why productive inefficiency and allocative inefficiency are considered wasteful in resource utilization? Now, this is what happens when people like memorize notes and go, you struggle in questions like this. But if you have logically understood the story, you should be able to logically formulate an answer. Now, what is productive efficiency? Productive efficiency is where you use all your resources in the maximum sustainable way and produce the highest possible output, the maximum sustainable output there. Then what is productive inefficiency? Productive inefficiency means you're not using your resources fully, right? Maybe there is unemployment, right? There is no full employment. There is no full production. And that is what you have to talk about. Talk about the opposite of that now, right? So you can say this is what productive efficiency is, but then productive inefficiency is where, see, the firm is not producing its output in the least costly way. Productive efficiency is where you produce at the least costly. And it fails to obtain the maximum output per unit of input. So productive efficiency is where you produce the maximum with your inputs, but here you're doing the others. So why is it wasteful, Lamai? Because you're not using your resource more. There is unemployment that is happening. So when you take an economy as a whole here, this means that the economy can't stay on the PPC. You're not operating on the PPC. You're operating at a point inside the PPC. There is underutilization or unemployment of your resources. Unhighlight that. Same thing with my allocative inefficiency. Allocative efficiency means you produce what the society wants. You allocate your resources to produce the goods and services society wants. Then what is allocative inefficiency? Opposite of that. You're allocating your resources not to produce the goods what the society wants. You're allocating your resources maybe to produce something that is not needed. Or otherwise, you are either overproducing or underproducing. You're producing more than what the society wants. Society wants only 100 loaves of bread. You're producing 500 loaves of bread. You're overproducing. Society wants, let's say, 100 clothes. You're producing only 200 clothes. You're underproducing that. So either you're producing totally different goods, or even the goods that you're producing, you're not producing the ideal amount that the society wants. That is what you call allocative inefficiency. Remember, we connect that with dead weight loss in unit number 3. right? Resources can go the waste in the sense now. Don't say resources will get waste like that. Just say that you're producing what is not needed. So that is where the wastage is coming. Society wants something else. You're either allocating more resources, you're producing less resources. Now, these are questions now that makes you think. And from 2020 onwards, you will see every year there is a very interesting question in your paper, especially even in the latest A-level paper, 2025 paper. Question number 1 is a very interesting question line. And it's not a very basic Baba type define economic resources, what is constant opportunity cost. It's not like that. And they have given questions where the student has to start thinking. So that is good, the fact that they are doing that. Here, you don't have to draw diagrams, not needed for this question. Yes, because of this wastage of resource came in, you're not allocating your resource properly. So your resources are getting wasted. That's what you can highlight. Okay, right. That's question 2. Then question number 3, very easy one. What are the main functions of an economic system? So the functions of an economic system, Lamai, is to answer whether you are a market, commando, mixed. Your main functions are to answer the basic economic problems. How do you identify whether you want diagram or not? First, they have to tell you in the question. Second, if it's a 4-mark question, Lamai, you should be able to break it down. Now, when they say productive inefficiency, allocative inefficiency, that's what I explained you last time, right? When you start a question, you break it down. So it's 2 marks for productive inefficiency, 2 marks for allocative inefficiency. There is no particular diagram for that. And if you want, let me draw a diagram, no problem. But with practice, you should be able to figure out should you draw or not. So before you start answering, you break the answer in your head and then you start answering. Yes, your papers are much harder and I think that is good, Lavan. Okay. So main functions of an economic system. What are the main functions of an economic system? First one is to determine what goods and services to produce. In other words, that's your resource allocation function. Second one is determine how to produce it. That is your production function. And third one, whom are these goods going to be produced or whom to produce? How are you going to distribute the goods? So that story, productive inefficiency, if you want to draw, just draw a point inside the PPC. You're productively inefficient. Productive efficiency means you're on the PPC. Then inefficiency means you're inside the PPC. Okay, that's question 3, easy one. Then question number 4. Now, this was a question number connected to a bit of the current context that happened in that year. Now, this was the COVID year, and it was a good opportunity for the examiner to test something like that. So the examiner put in a question saying, explain what happens to a country's production possibility curve due to a pandemic such as COVID-19. Now, here, the examiner has explained the answer very interestingly. So if the COVID pandemic, right, if it causes a big disruption, right, so there is, because at this point, Lama, it's still unclear what COVID is going to cause, right? It's still in the middle of COVID. So then if your COVID is going to cause, Lama, a significant disruption where you will see your labor force coming down, people are dying, let's say, Lama, your what productivity is falling because people are sick and they can't work. If that is what is happening, then Anna, you can say, Lama, the PPC will shift inside. But you can also argue the other way. You can also say if the COVID pandemic is not going to cause much of a disruption, if it is like some small temporary thing, not that people are dying, people are just, let's say, sick and resting a bit at home until they come back. So then if it is causing if there is a small impact out of that, then what happens? Then it is not a PPC shifting, then it's just a temporary point moving inside. So you have to argue on both sides here. You have to say, look here, if this kind of thing happens because of COVID, Anna PPC will shift. But if it's a small impact, if it's like a temporary thing like this, Anna, then it can be a point moving. PPC to the current for will not affect our PPC. Yes, for you, they can connect floods and all if they want. Right. Question 3 starts by the word what. When I say, so this is what, Lama. So these are 3 short points. So when I say what, it doesn't have to be 1-line points, more this one. LF is my labor force coming down. Okay. Right, that's part 4. Then we go to part 5. Now, if you remember, the same question was there before, but a little bit in a different way. So then question 5 is saying, explain why division of labor causes increases in the level of production in an economy. So here explain. So ideally, the question says explain, so then you have to explain. Don't ask me, do you have to explain? Right. So then how do you explain this? You can talk about several facts. So ideally, I would have liked if you have explained around, let's say 5 points, each point around 3-4 lines, you could have talked about. So here you can talk about, yes, answer is big for the prior question is because the answer is big, Lama. I have not typed the answer. So one part you explain about this thing, one part you explain about the other thing. So you have to explain that. So then the answer automatically becomes big. So why does division of labor this thing? What is LF, Lama? LF is labor force. Lama, please listen when I write things on the screen. When I write things on the screen, I just explain, but I write the short form on the screen because otherwise I waste time writing. Your objective here is not just to copy down what I'm writing here. Your objective is to look at your answer, what you have written, and then make notes. Right. So explain why this happens. So you can talk about productivity increasing. So when you have division of labor, one person does only one thing. So people are specialized. So as a result, they get better at what they do. Productivity improves. Then you can talk about right man for the right job in the right place because of this. You can talk about this. No, it can't be one paragraph. If you put it in one paragraph, you're not going to get your entire 5 marks. Okay. Then this one, the skills and all. So dexterity and skills means people become highly skilled at what they're doing. Right? Innovations and all can be facilitated. It saves time because of less errors and all. It encourages long-term production, and then you can talk about economies of scale. So ideally around 5 of these points in small 5 paragraphs, you'll have to put. One big paragraph with everything is not that great. If you want, yes, you can write the point and then explain. That is okay. Since it's a 5-mark question, I would go safe with 5 small points. If it was a 6-marker, then maybe 3 reasons explained much more in detail. But it's a 5-marker, 5 small points. The explanation doesn't have to be pages and pages. Around 3 pages should be fine. Reduction in waste, fine. We can talk. Right, that's 2020. Okay, so then we have the next set of questions. Can we do 21 and take a break quick? Then we have less questions after the break. Fine. 10 more minutes. Okay. Right. So we'll quickly do 21. 2021 question number 1. The first one is outline 2 characteristics of land as a factor of production. So what are the characteristics of land, Lama? Maybe one characteristic you can give is that it's a natural resource. Right? So it's not man-made, or you can say gifted by nature. So you can explain that. No? So what does gifted by nature means? That means it is not something that is man-made. It is something that is gifted by nature that you get free of charge. It's a natural thing. I won't put rent as a payment as a main characteristic. I will keep that out. Right? So since it is only 2, then you can talk about supply being inelastic. So if you take the supply of land, it is not easy to increase the supply of land that easy. And if you want to even, let's say, grow trees, it takes time. You talk about that. Then you can also talk about geographical immobility. Right? You can't move land from one place to another, yes, except for animals. You can't move anything else from one place to another. So any 2 characteristics, give the characteristic, product around a 2-line explanation should be more than enough. Yes, non-uniformity, fine. Okay. How much should you explain? That is what I would have explained last class. So for a question that says outline, maybe like a 2 to 3 line, small explanation is enough. Okay. Then the next one. This again, now see the examiner is going into more practical type of questions. No, supply is not perfectly inelastic, it's inelastic. Perfectly inelastic means you can't change at all. You can change, you can grow trees. You can increase the amount of land. Not that you can't increase, but it's hard to increase. primary factor? No, that's not a main point. I won't put. Yes, 2 points are enough now because the question says no two characteristics. So don't ask me if 2 points are enough. Yeah, read the question. Then part 2, a 500-acre land in the outskirts of a city is considered by the environmental authority to be preserved in its natural state, as this area is a home for many endangered species. So there is a 500-acre plot of land, and you have the environmental authority. They are deciding, okay, we'll keep it in its natural state so that so many animals out there can live. Then the urban development authority, these fellows, what they have done is, Lamai, they have said, has planned to build a housing complex on this land. So identify the elements of scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost involved in this case. Now, they are not asking you, Lamai, to define the 3 concepts in a way. Right? They're asking you to explain these 3 connecting with this case. So scarcity, Lamai, is the limitedness of resource compared to unlimited bonds. So here, if you look at scarcity, you only have, Lamai, one 500-acre plot of land. Right? So you have one scarce plot of land which has a lot of uses, right? You can keep it in its state, you can build houses. So that is the scarce side of it. So you have to explain that. Then the choice part of it, Lama, is the 2 choices. So with this scarce plot of land, there are 2 choices that can be made. One is you can either keep it at its natural state for the animals to live, or you can build houses where people get houses. But you can't do both of it. So therefore, Anna, you talk about opportunity cost, because you have to make a choice. You can't do both of it. If you decide to keep it as a natural thing, then the opportunity cost is the houses that you could have built. If you decide to build the houses, then your opportunity cost is all the animals that might get endangered, then all of that. So Anna, you connect it and Lamai for 2 marks, 2 marks, 2 marks. You talk about the points. That is what you will do. So they will make questions, Lamai, as practical as possible now. Why is land called a non-specific factor? Where did you see that? I didn't say anything like that. Yes, so recent questions, Lamai, as much as possible. So we'll do more and more questions like this also in the fast track class and all of that. If a school teacher told you, then you might have to ask them. I'm not sure what she meant. What you will see a lot of things happening, practical questions, questions tricking you, especially when we, after the break, I'll go through the 2024, 2025 papers. You all will see, Lamai, the questions are very practical, making you think. It's not very direct questions and that never. Okay. Scarcity is land, can you have to connect it, Lamai. It's a 6-mark question. Okay. So then part 3, why is a production possibility curve negatively sloped? And why is it bowed outward? Land and natural capital will complete later. So why is a PPC negatively sloped, Lamai? Because of opportunity cost, not increasing opportunity cost, because of opportunity. Why negatively sloped, Lamai? Straight line also is negatively sloped. Concave is also negatively sloped. This is also negatively sloped. PPC is not positively sloped. No, you don't have PPC like this. They ask you, why is a PPC downward sloping? That's a negatively sloped. It's negatively sloped to represent opportunity cost, meaning if you want to increase the production of one good, you have to sacrifice the production of another. That is what you're saying, Lamai, negatively sloped. Then that's the first part of the question. Then they're asking you, why is it curved outward, bowed outward? That is where you talk about it's bowed out because of increasing opportunities. That is where if you want to increase the production of one good by equal amount, you have to sacrifice more and more of another. Then the next one is asking, Lamai, why is it bowed outward, but you can't stop there. No? Now you have to talk about, Lamai, the reasons for increasing opportunity cost. Right? We have done this question before as well. Trade-off mentioning is okay, but you have to say opportunity cost. In addition to that, if you have talked a little bit about trade-off, that is okay. Okay, that's the third one. Then question number 4. Question number 4, see again, they try to make it relevant. define a mixed economy that is directly coming from theory. So what's a mixed economy? A mixed economy is where you have elements of both market and command economy. They will use both price mechanism and planning mechanism. Some resources are owned by the private sector, some are owned by the government. Usually price mechanism is dominant. Government will come and whatever that the market doesn't provide, they will provide. You can put that talk about. Right? So 2 marks for talking about that. Then they're asking you, state 4 examples of economic activities which support the view that Sri Lanka is a mixed economy. So you have to now prove with examples how Sri Lanka is a mixed economy. So the characteristics that you talked about, does Sri Lanka have those? Yes. So if you take in Sri Lanka, the private sector and the government both own resources. You have private and public businesses. There is a protection of private property. You have Lamai prices are based on demand and supply, but you also have price controls by the government if it is unfair. You have Lamai what usual income distribution and all based on purchasing power, but government will come and charge taxes and subsidies and they will reduce the income inequality. Right, you can talk about the infrastructure government providing. You ideally have to talk about how the private and the public sector both are involved in this story, proving that look here, Sri Lanka is this mixed economy. So ideally 4 points because they're saying the state 4 examples. So you have to give 4 examples. Yes, you can talk about government providing public goods. You mentioned social and socialist or in the first one. Then that's it. That's all with question 2021. Okay. So then we have 22, 23, 24, 25. We have 4 more papers to discuss. So we'll take a break. It's 8:23. I'll give you a break until 8:30. Take a break and come. 8:30. Sorry, 9:30. 9:30 and come back.